For most of the last 2 decades, while the Minnesota Timberwolves floundered in the NBA's gutter and were largely ignored or ridiculed by the rest of the league and those who cover it, the organization held firm to the belief that the tune would change once the play on the court did. What has become clear is that 3 straight playoff appearances and a run to the Western Conference Finals that set the Twin Cities ablaze with energy are not yet enough of a turnaround to win over the larger NBA populace. The run the Wolves had last season was revelatory because they had only been that deep in the playoffs one other time in their 35 seasons in the league. But it appears as though many across the NBA landscape see it as just a cute little season easily dismissed. This season will be the most anticipated one since their very first. The Wolves will just have to do it again. They have to be even better than they were last season. Their 2 stirring playoff series wins have been swiped aside. Rudy Gobert is the league's favorite pincushion. He has been subject to some intense criticism from his peers. Of course, this is far from unusual for him, as Gobert is frequently targeted with NBA hot takes and undeserved verbal attacks from pundits, former players, and the like. But this time, things seemed to reach a boiling point when Shaquille O'Neal called Rudy the worst player in NBA history.
Woke NBA player.
Rudy Gobert.
Oh my God! I knew he was going to say Rudy Gobert. I'm sorry to Rudy Gobert.
No, because I'm gonna tell you what. If you sign a contract for $250, show me $250. It's the reason why I walk funny and why I can't turn my neck and why I can't do it because I played for my 1 point. So you got guys like him that the system over, they're making all this money and they can't play. So I don't respect guys like that. Like every time I make these comments, people think I'm hating, but these are facts. You got teachers, you got firemen, you got doctors who have real jobs and don't get paid shit.
Whether Shaq truly believes that or not is a separate discussion, but there is no doubt the statement was out of line either way. It was such an over-the-top, uncalled-for moment that Rudy, known for usually keeping to himself and not paying attention to the noise, actually pushed back on Shaq. It is sad to see someone that has accomplished as much as you did, both in sport and business, still be triggered by another man's finances and accomplishments. I get the entertainment part, but unlike other folks, you don't need that stuff to stay relevant. Gobert has made a ton of money in his career and acquired 4 NBA Defensive Player of the Year awards, but has yet to play in an NBA Finals. His offensive game is clunky and he has had some tough moments in big spots. France played its best basketball of the Olympics after Gobert's minutes were drastically reduced. It needed more offensive versatility next to Wemby in the front court and got it from Gershon Yabusele and Matthias Lesor, both of whom were not on NBA rosters at the time. And yes, Luka beat Gobert in isolation at the end of Game 2 of the West Finals and proceeded to say some very mean things to him. Gobert is a surefire Hall of Famer, one of the best defensive players of this or any generation. His arrival in Minnesota has ensured that Edwards is playing meaningful games early in his career, setting a standard of expectation for him that Karl-Anthony Towns, Andrew Wiggins, Kevin Love, and any other young players that Wolves fans hoped would lift the franchise never had. Gobert was essential for the Wolves' success last season and will be needed even more this season. Then there is Cat, who can't seem to get the smoky smell out of his clothes after Jimmy Butler's fiery exit almost 6 years ago. Towns played well against Phoenix and Denver in the first 2 rounds of the playoffs, the first postseason success of his 9-year career, but he couldn't make a shot against the Mavericks for most of the series. He played the best defense of his career last season and has sacrificed more than anyone on the Wolves to accommodate Gobert, but that hasn't been enough for some people. Towns and Gobert will make about $93 million combined next season, contracts that they have earned by their all-star resumes and the league's skyrocketing revenues throughout their careers. Shaq often bemoans how much money the modern players make, but it's merely a reflection of the growing financial pie that the owners and players share. This is not to say that the Wolves should be considered unimpeachable. Edwards' comments about Michael Jordan being the only player with skills back in the day are silly and worthy of rebuke. The same goes for some of Towns' comments on the podcast circuit. As for the team itself, it will be competing in a Western Conference that will be tougher than ever. Teams all around them have gotten better while the Wolves will be banking on internal improvement. 37-year-old free agent Joe Ingles and rookies Rob Dillingham and Terrence Shannon Jr. to help make up for the losses of Kyle Anderson, Jordan McLaughlin, and Monty Morris. Conley and Gobert are a year older. There's not a player on the roster who has been to the finals, so there will be questions about their ability to break through until they do it. Rudy Gobert acknowledged as much last season as the Wolves were emerging as legitimate contenders in the West. There were times earlier in his career when the criticism stung him much more. Now, he is trying to rise above it. We saw it with Giannis. We saw it with Jokic. Everyone always had something to say about their game and about who they are as players until they won a championship. And then what did people have to say after that? Not much. They can only respect. So I have to earn their respect. Gobert averaged 14 points, 13 rebounds, and 2 blocks per game in 76 regular season games for the Timberwolves. His length and ability to defend at the rim made opposing teams change their offensive game plans. He was the key piece of a massive trade involving several draft picks and players to the Utah Jazz to bring him to Minnesota. He's due $44 million in the 2024-25 season and is under contract through 2026. Shaq is one of the most dominant players to ever play the game, and it is understandable if he is a little salty that contracts today tower over the deals that he signed in the 90s. Shaq sets a lofty standard for players who earn massive contracts. He doesn't want future deals to be jeopardized by underperforming, overpaid centers. He believes Gobert epitomizes all that is wrong with the NBA's current financial landscape. But calling a player as accomplished as Gobert the worst player of all time is comically off base. And Rasheed Wallace comparing Edwards to Derek McKee, a very good role player for Seattle and Indiana who never averaged more than 15 points per game, is dense for a player of his intelligence. If anything, it has strengthened the bond between Wolves fans and this team. They have a rising superstar in Edwards, a folk hero in Naz Reid, and the most connected and capable front office and coaching staff in ages. The only thing people in these parts might enjoy more is holding on to grievances when they feel like they are being unfairly picked on by people who aren't from here and have never walked a mile in their snow boots. They are rallying around Gobert now, just like they did for Towns during the playoffs, which means they can mutter under their breath when they're frustrated. Maybe it is a sign that the offseason is just a little too long. We need some games to cut through all of this foolishness.